my part of this is just maybe just to share a few highlights of the time that I spent here. And just kind of have to start at the beginning. Brother Ray Smith called me out of the blue and asked me about coming here to Huntingdon and why I came here. Nan and I had come to visit, and we went back to Detroit where I was pastoring. And I told Brother Ray that, thanks for the opportunity, but I didn't feel like that was the decision to make. But I went back to Detroit, and I'd be studying, trying to prepare to preach there. And all that was in my mind's eye was this pulpit and this group of people here. That went on for several weeks until I finally believed the Lord was in the decision to come here. When 1988, Grace Missionary Baptist Church in Detroit, Michigan, where I was pastor, we called Brother Massey to help us in a revival. That would have been in May of that year. And Brother Massey came. He and we were acquainted. I had met him at association meetings, spoke a few words. That's about it. We really didn't know each other. But Brother Massey graciously consented to come. And when he arrived, he hadn't been in the door 5 minutes, and the phone rang, and somebody from McFerrin Missionary Baptist Church in Nashville had called him. Little did I know, Brother Massey had resigned as pastor here at Huntingdon, and they were calling, inquiring about him coming to McFerrin. And to make a long story short, I knew when Brother Massey came to help in revival there in Detroit that I was finished in Detroit. The Lord just kind of let me know that. I hadn't said anything to the church, and Brother Massey and I spoke that week, and I just kind of revealed to him that I felt like I was through there. Anyway, Brother Massey preached that year, and we had a good revival meeting. I was blessed to have him with us. And he came back home to Huntingdon and dropped my name here. Brother Massey, I don't know if he ever heard me preach or not before that moment. But anyway, that's what led to Brother Ray Smith calling me to inquire if I would be interested in coming here. And I thought, well, I don't know. I'm just kind of hanging out, waiting for the Lord to. There was a commercial, a vintage commercial years ago, where somebody would answer the telephone. I can't even tell you what they were advertising, but I remember the line. This guy would answer the phone and said, "Get to Omaha," And I guess that's kind of how it was for me when I was in Detroit. Get to Huntingdon, Ray Smith called, and I put him off. But anyway, we came here, Nan and I did Thanksgiving of 1988. And it was the worst deluge since the flood, since Noah's day here in Huntingdon. Seriously, it was. Nan and I learned what bottomland was for the first time in our life. This place was underwater. It really was. It was incredible. I'd never seen anything like it. And horrible looking place. But the people in the church were really nice. Ray and Wilma put us up for the weekend, and they ran us off to Jackson one night. I think they were trying to show us that there's some civilization around Carroll County. But anyway, it was the worst weekend you ever saw. The people here were quite wonderful, welcoming. We really enjoyed that, and I stumbled through a couple of sermons, and we couldn't wait to get out of town, Nan and I both. I remember thanking Brother Ray at the door for the opportunity, and I told him at that moment, I'm just not feeling nothing. And when I got back home, I wrote a letter back to Independent Church, what it was at the time, saying thanks but no thanks. Nan and I, we were ready to just sail on out of here, you know. It was nearly underwater by the time we left, and couldn't wait to get back home. But that's the way it was. And I thank the church. I thank them for the opportunity, but I expressed to them that maybe they should look elsewhere. Much to my chagrin, they never did, that I know of. And Ray kept calling and kept calling. And as I said, as I was trying to prepare for the meetings in Detroit, I was seeing this in my mind's eye. And I came to the conclusion around Christmas that this is why I couldn't understand why the Lord wanted me to come from up north here, where there was so many preachers and so many churches. But anyway, the Lord has put things on my mind to do that I've rarely been able to understand. But I've learned through the years, you just trust Him. You know, leave the results and the details. You just trust the Lord and do what He says, and things will generally work out really, really well. And little did Nan and I know that we were beginning a 33-long year ministry, year-long ministry here. And I can truly tell you, they were the best years of my life in ministry right here. We really miss this place, and we miss all of you. And it's just always good to be here. And you really don't know what you have here. It's a blessing beyond description. You know, we all should recognize how blessed we are by God every day. Everyone knew us when we came to town, or at least they knew who we were. We were the newbies in town. I can't remember, it might have been Larry Thomason. I was looking for somebody to repair an appliance. They told me about Joe Haywood, and I went to see him about getting some repair. Where he said, "You're the new preacher at Independent, aren't you?" I said, "How'd you know?" And he said, "Really wasn't that hard to figure out." I don't know if it's the face or the accent or what, but anyway, he knew who I was. They knew Nan was the one going around the square with the turn signal on. Yeah. Everybody knew we bought the Joyner home, and it was the Joyner home as long as we lived there, over on Mavenwood. Brian Edwards had to come out and show me where the water meter was. I've looked all over the house. Surely there's got to be a place to turn the water off in this place, you know. And finally called the city. Well, how do you? And they sent Brian out. He came out there and showed me it's out in the front yard of all places, you know, buried. And I had to come to Tennessee to have my first experience with frozen plumbing. Yeah, but anyway. Joe Bailey knew who Nan was. She went over there to buy a part for the dishwasher. He sent her home with it without paying. And she said, "Aren't you worried?" He said, "I know where you live." Yeah, and we learned quickly that pork shoulder and catfish on Friday night were West Tennessee delicacies, you know. And it took us a while to come around to catfish, but we finally caught on. We got here last night and had catfish at Mallard's. It was great. My early years here, to me anyway, seemed uneventful. I think people were sizing up the new preacher from above the Mason-Dixon line. Some people just didn't hardly think I could be sound in the faith and be raised up north. But anyway, and we were trying to figure out who everybody was and remember all the names, which is a real challenge. How have you done with that, Brother James? It's rough, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I've told people this. Brother Massey was here 9 years or so, and I've told people repeatedly, you know, I was here 33 years, was blessed to be here. I said, it's taken me that long to straighten out Brother Massey's mess. So if it took me that long, Brother James, to straighten out his mess, I can't imagine how long it's going to take you to straighten out the mess I've made of things. But anyway, we came here, and it's been a real blessing. We had 8 deacons at the time. Brother Sam Allen, and the pictures were just fantastic of Sam and Polly. Sam Allen was a deacon, Dorsey Dammer and Max Green, Kenny Rush, Ray Smith, Leon Robinson, Tommy Cruz, and Harold Webb were deacons at the time. And I've got to tell you, just some of the best men that I've ever had the privilege to work with. In Genesis, it tells us there in, I think around the 6th chapter of Genesis, there were giants in the land then. To me, folks, we've had giants in our midst, both men and women. Tom Moody came along later, Carl Skates. We've ordained a few deacons here. Johnny Brent, finally, one of the last. He had to wait until I was gone before he finally consented to become a deacon. But I hope he works out for you. I really do. Claude Haddock, Mitchell Whitworth and Steve Edwards, Jimmy Simpson, and we've just had terrific men and their wonderful wives to work with through those years. I remember being here and standing in the pulpit and looking out at this congregation for those early weeks and months and thinking, man, half these people are getting ready to go to heaven. I mean, literally, I thought they were just knocking on death's door, and I'm really pleased to see some of you still here. Some great ones have already gone on. If I started mentioning names, I'd overlook some. But it's just been a blessing to have been in their presence, to serve the Lord with them. Just an incredible blessing. The sanctuary here was built when we came. Parking lot wasn't paved. Nan would skin up her high heels walking across the parking lot week after week, but the building had been built and it was paid off in just an incredibly short time. I remember the first business meeting we had, and Harold Webb read the treasurer's report that night, and I think we had like a $5 and something balance. And I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "Would you read that again?" And he read it back. Yeah, $5 and some odd cents was all they had in the treasurer. And I'm thinking, how are they going to pay me every week? But that's the way. He just paid everything on the mortgage here, and they just trusted the Lord. And wow, the building was paid for in no time, which was pretty incredible. Then we went on. We paved the parking lot. Added a new sign. We filled the drainage ditches in once, but y'all figured that needed to be redone, and not having such a good time of it, I see. But just persevere. You'll finally get there. We redecorated the sanctuary. It went from mauve to this beautiful blue. It was just an incredible blue. I loved it, and it was just really different, but it was nice. And then we went to this, and this is incredible as well. And of particular interest, I discovered some stationery here in the office, some old stationery that was here, and it said Friendly Independent Baptist Church on it. And I can tell you that's exactly what Independent Missionary Baptist Church was. It was a friendly church. They were open and welcoming to Nan and me, and everybody else that walked in the door. And that's just one of the many reasons why HMBC has grown so and been so successful, is because of their friendliness. And I've found it a great place for myself to heal spiritually when I came here. And other people have experienced that as well. Just a loving Christian family. We've had bumps in the road, of course. We have had difficulties, but the people here genuinely love each other, care for each other. And they open their hearts and the doors of the church to other people who come along as well to experience that, and it's incredible. We built a new fellowship hall in 1994, along with a big 2-car garage. Brother Audie Simpson and myself, we drew the plans out for that on a legal pad, and that was our blueprint. Seriously, that's all we had. Harold Miller provided a tremendous amount of free labor and materials as well in building that. And let's see, Kenny Rush and Harold Webb, Walter Brown, Johnny Bartholomew, they were electricians. They did all the wiring. Claude Haddock was the only plumber we had, and Claude was not a member here, and Claude was here every day, doing the plumbing and anything else he could. And I remember sitting in my office just praying, Claude, stay home today. Just stay home today, because I needed to stay in the office and study, and I hated for him to be back here working by himself. But he came every day and helped us build that fellowship hall, and it was a wonderful blessing. I was coming through Nashville, and I stopped to get a cup of coffee, and there was this church band sitting there with this fantastic ski boat behind it. It was all color coordinated, had the church name on the band, church name on the boat. I came back to Huntingdon and I suggested that we had a church band back here in the 2-car garage. We had another slot available, but they didn't go for the ski boat. I think that's the only thing through the years that I suggested to them that they just really didn't go for. But it would have been a nice addition to the church, I thought. We've got lakes around here, but anyway. Revival in 1998, Brother Brian Oakes was selected that year to help us in revival. And Brian came and did a remarkable job. He did some amazing preaching that week. And through the course of that revival meeting, day and night, we didn't have a move. Nobody came to the altar, no additions to the church. Nothing, it's one of those revival meetings you come to the end of and everybody's patting on yourself on, well, we've sowed some good seeds, it was a good meeting. Yeah, I've heard that I don't know how many times. But the revival ended, and then Sunday we came back to church. And that Sunday, when the service was ended, we had 7 saved, 14 additions to the church. I had 9 people to baptize that year. It was incredible, and God is just so good. He is just so wonderfully good, and he blessed us. Another unusual Sunday in 2002 in March, I had one person to baptize, and while we were getting ready for that, someone came to the altar and wanted to join the church, and so they kind of put this lady off for just a few moments till we could get this baptism done. And at the end of that service, we had 1 saved and 6 additions that day, and most of them to be baptized as well. So, God, he works in mysterious ways, and it's always different. It's never quite the same, and you just have to trust in the Lord and wait on the Lord. Early on HMBC, we began a junior youth program. Some of you were here at the time. They had a youth program in place for teenagers, but we decided, we were maybe waiting a little bit too late, so we started a junior youth program. And, both the senior and junior youth continued to grow through the years, and we had many dedicated youth leaders through those years, and some of you are youth leaders now. And I know the church appreciates your dedication and commitment to that. It's a big job. It really is, working with kids. It's a blessing. It can be challenging, and I just thank the Lord for the willingness of all of you to serve. Ray Smith always unabashedly said, when you call a pastor, you get 2 for 1. You get the preacher's wife also when you call the preacher. And I can tell you that Nan was a tremendous help to me. My greatest confidant, critic, advisor, and guys, we know who's in charge. We really do. And I appreciate it. She was just the quintessential pastor's wife. Just I know I'm bragging on her. I better quit. She and I discovered a book one time in a Christian bookstore that was titled, "So You're the Pastor's Wife." And we got a big kick out of that. We referred to that book, "So You're the Pastor's Wife." And she's the pastor's wife. She was involved in VBS and the junior and senior youth program, not to mention the Helping Hands ladies who helped us, organize events at the church, ministered to the sick and shut-ins here at the church, in and out of the church, and many other things that they've contributed to the church. And not to mention, they would get together and take the church van off to who knows where and have way more fun than was biblically permissible. And they don't talk about that so much openly, but appreciate the Helping Hands ladies through the years and what they've contributed to the church. In 1999, HMBC hired its first official employee. They hired Ann Ridings at the exorbitant sum of $7 an hour. And some of us wondered whether she's going to be worth it or not. Let's see, she's a musician, choir leader, secretary, photographer, librarian, gardener, and I was so glad that she couldn't preach. Because y'all know, I would have just been unnecessary around here if that was possible. I thank the Lord for that little restriction there, but Ann, your contribution to the church has been immense, and still felt. We had half a choir when I first came here, and look at what y'all have now. The choir has grown, and it's incredible. And every time I come here and I sit just for a few minutes and listen to y'all sing, it just blesses my soul incredibly. In February 2001, we went through a name change. It was independent. Missionary Baptist Church in the beginning. We learned through the years, nobody really much liked the name. And we were being identified with a whole denomination of independent Baptists, fundamental Baptists. And there's little distinction between this Baptist church and this Baptist church. And there's more Baptist churches, as many Baptist churches as there are denominations. But anyway, we changed the name to Huntingdon Missionary Baptist Church, and it was a good move for us. And in 2001, HMBC became known as the Church of What's Happening Now. There was this things happening here all the time. The church had become, as Brother Massey was involved in the community, we became more involved in the community as well. Relay for Life team, we had a stellar choir that was singing at community functions on a yearly basis. Our mission outreach, the Victory Quartet, and all of these things contributed to our visibility in the community. And I really think for the longest time, Huntingdon didn't really realize that there was a church out here like Huntingdon, and I'm thankful for the impact that this church has made on this community. Beginning in 2002, we began acquiring properties adjacent to the church, and I think in the end of that, we bought up about 6 different parcels of land here, for future expansion. And we built the new Christian Life Center, and new kitchen, and other the pavilion out here as well. In September of 2002, I baptized the oldest person in my ministry. Brother James Turner was 85 years old, giant of a man physically. He was really big. His hands were twice the size of mine. And James, bless his heart, he had Parkinson's. He had the tremors. And it was amazing. When I was trying to help James get up, he was pulling down. If I was trying to help him get seated, he's pushing back up, just kind of the opposite. But James told me one day when I was visiting him, he was saved when he was just a young man. And he said, the biggest mistake I ever made, he says, I was never baptized. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, we can fix that. I said, it's not too late, Brother James. And he came to church one Sunday morning, and I had prepared the baptistry because I knew he wanted to be baptized. He gave his testimony that day, and Tommy Cruz, maybe Harold Webb, I think, helped me baptize this giant of a man. And we were concerned with him having Parkinson's. But that was the first Sunday when James was baptized. The church just erupted in applause. You know, and I just came to the conclusion that's biblical. You know, it tells us in Psalm 47:1, oh, clap your hands and shout to God in triumph. He's speaking to Israel about the blessings of God. You know, and every victory that we experience in the Lord is an applaudable event, you know. And so every baptism, you know, the church applauds that. And it is an applaudable event when somebody follows the Lord in baptism. And I was so thankful and blessed to be able to be a part of that. We had hot fudge last night, and I was hoping that maybe somebody would join the church, Sarah. We've got some hot fudge members. One night we decided to have hot fudge. We like to have those eating meetings. And we'd fixed hot fudge, and after the service, Joe and Sarah came up to me. I was just getting ready to dig into that hot fudge, and they said, we made a terrible mistake tonight. And I said, what's the problem? They said, we needed to join the church. And I said, well, we can fix that too. And so we called the church to order a business back there in the fellowship hall while we made the hot fudge cool off a little bit. And Joe and Sarah gave their testimony back there, and we received them, and they became wonderful members and additions to HMBC. We had to pray a long time in Prod Berry before he finally got saved and joined in with us. But he's come along too. He's made a pretty good, helpful member of the church, and just one of those odd circumstances. You know, we just need to allow the Lord opportunity to work and follow him. And other memorable experiences. Patrick Smith was Miss Sarah Smith's great burden. She'd work on him every year to get him to revival meeting, and he'd come here and he'd sit just as glum as he possibly could, you know, just couldn't wait till the service was over and get out, you know. And that went on for the longest time. I'm in my office one day, and somebody's rattling those doors out front, and I walk out in the vestibule, and there's Patrick. And I open the door. He said, I'm under the worst conviction I've ever had in my life. You know, I said, let's go in and pray about it. You know, we came right down here, and Patrick prayed, and he got saved. It was just an incredible experience. Alan Simpson, we worked on Alan Simpson for a long time and prayed for him. He finally got saved. I believe he was driving his car. A friend of his had passed away. And they were driving in the car, I believe on the way to the cemetery, you know, and the reality of his lost condition just really set in on him, and he got saved driving his car. And I'm proud to say that, you know, we prayed for Alan a long time. Tommy Wood, Don, I remember him sliding into home plate right down here, you know, one night in revival and got saved in a short time. Saw Jeremy Hill's picture. Remember this young boy getting saved at a young age and going around singing, I'm going to heaven. Little did any of us know how quickly that boy would go to heaven. And it's just another bright reason to rejoice in the thoughts that we have of going to heaven as well. Big Jim Augustine was our Polak. And I say that with all the affection. Jim was a Polak, and he knew he was, you know. It just in every sense of the word, and he was rough, and you know, his language was rough, and he sat here on this altar, this big husky fella, and just wept like a baby and trusted in the Lord and got saved. It was comical to watch him struggle over getting over his profanity. You know, I don't know how many times, oops, sorry, preacher, he would say, you know. But you could tell the Lord was making that new creature out of him. Yeah, I think he had a little difficult time with Jim, but anyway, That was amazing. And I can't forget Rachel Carter. She kept us at the altar here for a solid year, every Sunday. I could preach on tithing, and Rachel Carter was going to come to the altar. I guess the Lord knew we needed the practice. And she finally got it worked out. You know, Scripture tells us to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And she did, and finally, you know, testified that she was saved. And there were many, many others. We built the CLC, the Christian Life Center, not a gym. It's not a gymnasium. That's where the Greeks exercised in the nude. And I told the church, we're not going to do that here. So it's a Christian Life Center. Ray Smith and I stopped by the church one evening after association meeting. We sat there and just kind of brainstormed on what we needed to do as a church. And that CLC and the Sunday school wing came out of that. We hired Fisher Construction to build that, and they built a kitchen for us so we could have those eating meetings. And boy, we liked to have those eating meetings, didn't we? Just a lot of wonderful fellowship. You know, that's important too, brothers and sisters. You know, the doctrinal truth is important, but the fellowship, you know, to build and cultivate the fellowship in the church where this body of people come together and they become a spiritual family, a family that genuinely loves each other and likes to be together, is incredibly important. At our open house that we had, I remember this gentleman asked me, what fundraising did you all do to pay for this? And I said, we don't do any fundraising. He said, you don't do any how do you pay for it? And I said, the old-fashioned way, tithes and offerings. And that's exactly how this church is operated, tithes and offerings. Nobody's obligated to give anything, and we don't sell stuff and you know, try to raise money that way. We do it the way the Bible explains that we should do it, tithes and offerings. And then some years later, we took an incredible step where the church decided to set aside 10% of its offerings, or a tithe of its offerings, to support missions. And out of that decision, HMBC has developed an incredible mission support for numerous missions around the world. And it continues to grow, and Huntingdon as a church continues to grow with it. And they continue to be a light in West Tennessee, in Carroll County, in Huntingdon and beyond. And she truly has been friendly, independent Baptist church, Huntingdon Missionary Baptist Church, a friendly church. HMBC is wonderful for many reasons. It's already been stated about their steadfastness in the faith. You know, this church has never been afraid to try something new. I remember Trey Cruz suggesting one time early on that we have a lock-in. I didn't know what a lock-in was, and I had asked him for some clarification. He said, well, kids will spend the night at the church. And I don't know, it just rattled my chain, but as I thought about it and prayed about it, I couldn't find a reason for them not to do that. And we started that lock-in meeting one night about 9 o'clock, and we had a house full of kids in here, and a young preacher that came from Nashville, he just cut loose and preached the gospel to them. And Amanda Stokes and Matt Tucker came to the altar. Matt, bless his heart, I can almost hear him now. He was just weeping and praying audibly for God to have mercy on his soul. Amanda got saved that night. Matt didn't get satisfied, but he went on and finally acknowledged being saved. And it's just wonderful things that come out of just trying new things. You know, just because it's new doesn't mean it's not workable. But anyway, this church has always been forward thinking, and it's been the best place that I've been in my Christian life, to worship the Lord, to heal spiritually, to grow spiritually in knowledge, and to experience the love that God has for us and that we should have for one another. I've quoted my favorite scriptures many times here. 1 John 3, verses 1 and 2 says, behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. And he goes on to say, he said, therefore, the world knoweth us not because it knew him not. They said, beloved, now, not future tense, now are we the sons of God. Doesn't yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when he appears, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. That's why it's so important for us, brothers and sisters, to come to church and focus on who Jesus is, to learn about who and what he is, that we would grow into that same image. And I thank you, HMBC, for allowing me the privilege to be your pastor for so many years and to experience so many incredible blessings. I know what Brother James, I thank the Lord for him answering the call to come here. And the years ahead will reveal what great things God has in store for you and Mary. Like Brother Ray Smith always said, to get 2 for 1. And we appreciate your willingness to come here, you and your family, to become an active members of this church. And it's just a blessing. Man, I've been watching from a distance your growth, your increase in the Lord. And I know that's going to continue as long as you continue, seeking to follow the Lord's will for your life. So God bless you all. Nan and I love you more than we can say. And it's our honor and our privilege to be here to share this anniversary, 75th. We were here for the 50th anniversary. It's a blessing to be here for the 75th. I'd like to hang around for the 100th, but this is also my birthday, so I don't see that year 100 coming around. But anything's possible, right? yeah. God bless you all is my prayer. Brother James, thank you for the invitation. God bless.